Thank you for your remarks, Congresswoman. We will now move on to the Q&A portion of the event. My colleagues will pass me question slips, and I will call on the constituent with the question, and then my colleague here, Jasper, will pass the microphone to you. Let's see. So the first one we have is for Jonah Gensler, who had a question about the Sunnyside Community Center and Woodside houses.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Jonah Gensler. I work at Sunnyside Community Services.
Fabulous.
One of the programs that you funded through the earmarks is our program.
Yes, I'm aware, and thank you all for doing that incredible work as well.
Thank you. One of the programs funded by you through the earmarks is in Woodside Houses. We have a Cornerstone Community Center. We thank you for that.
No, of course. Thank you. Thank you for doing the work. Would you like to share with the community what you all are working on out there?
So we're working with over 60 young people, ensuring that we can stop the violence in the community and provide them alternatives and supports so they can thrive. But they can't thrive if they're flooded out. Mm-hmm. That center in Hurricane Ida, the water was up to here. And those children have been displaced. They're in area schools. We're trying to rebuild. But that rebuilding won't be effective if we don't have long-lasting solutions. Mm-hmm. And we're told that the streets need to be torn up and real solutions need to be found. How do we find the resources for that kind of infrastructure mm-hmm. so that the kids in public housing can have the same rights that every kid in New York City should have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's such a salient and important question, because one of the things that we've seen, sometimes every winter we go on the news and we'll see, especially how our neighbors that are living in NYCHA, whether it's Woodside Houses, Queensbridge, just over in the neighboring congressional district, how their boilers are out and how families are going without heat and hot water in the wintertime. Well, one of the things that happened in Woodside Houses and kind of around where Queensbridge Houses is that we actually got brand new boiler systems, and they were installed a week before Hurricane Ida hit. But they were installed underground because the boiler systems in NYCHA are in kind of these subterranean, kind of big basement style facilities underneath the building itself. So these brand new boiler systems were put in, and then Ida hit maybe a week or two later, and they were immediately flooded out. Brand new systems that were then totally flooded out. And then this winter, we had the same problem all over again. And so you're right in that if we cannot just build things back the way they were after a catastrophic storm, we have to build them back resiliently, and we have to build them back for the next 100 years, not for the last 100 years. And so when we talk about the resources that are necessary, there are some critical infrastructure funds that are in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But as I said, Build Back Better is the puzzle piece for it. And the bad news is we're at this impasse right now, right? Where Joe Manchin's sitting on it in the Senate. And the things that are his red line, it's just ridiculous. Don't even get me started, okay? The child tax credit is literally what his red line is. He believes that the child tax credit is unacceptable to him. But the good news is that what we were able to successfully fight for last year to be put in Build Back Better, that passed the House, which is a huge hurdle, is all $40 billion in capital needs for NYCHA. It's in Build Back Better. And we fought for it, and we got it secured, and we got certain provisions and fought for a specific attunement and consideration of climate infrastructure needs in our public housing systems. But one of the big fights that we need to have, and that we had and that we won with BBB, is finally getting people to realize that housing is infrastructure. Housing is infrastructure. It's just as critical physical infrastructure as our roads and our bridges. Schools are infrastructure. These buildings are public facilities, and they are infrastructure. And by the way, they're not just for our kids or for our families that use them, but we should also be thinking about public facilities like schools. We need to be considering them with climate in mind, which means This building needs to be prepared in case there's a disaster that our community can come here for refuge. It needs to be built like that. That's what we're talking about with resiliency. So when it comes to resources, we've got those initial resources in BBB. Now what we need to do is figure out what is amenable, how we can get some of these resources passed while we implement the existing resources that were deployed in the bipartisan infrastructure plan, which we're already starting to do, and making sure that we conduct oversight with how that is conducted, because it's not enough just to move a pot of money from one place to another. We need to make sure that that money is distributed responsibly and that ethically and with full accountability and transparency to the people.